Do I have to watch on the screen?
You ready for this?
I don't know.
What's up, guys? I'm Cody.
And I'm Jacob.
And this is our podcast.
Free to think.
Free to think. It's not necessarily our first podcast. We've actually been podcasting for quite a while, right?
Yeah, we're podcasters from way back.
Way back in the day,
like
like
say.
3 or 4 months ago, right?
Yep.
Anyways, as I say, we've been flexing our muscles, working out, trying to get good at podcasting. I don't think we're good at podcasting.
I think we're very good. Of course.
I'm sure some people would disagree, but anyways, we're podcasting and we want to make this one our first live. Not live, but we're going to make it go live.
We're live.
We're live right now. We are, but when people listen to it, it won't be live. Anyways. So just a quick tease for our topics today. I mean, it's June, so if it's June and you're podcasting, you have to talk about Pride Month.
There's something obligatory about it.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's just a nice, non-controversial topic to talk about on your very first podcast that people are going to listen to.
It's just a slice of Americana. We're just going to dive right in.
Yeah. And then it happens to be June 19th today, which if you put June and 19 together, you get Juneteenth.
Something.
Juneteenth.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So we'll jump into Juneteenth as well. But and then why are we doing this podcast?
We're going to say that for the very end.
Whatever you want, man.
Oh.
Whatever you want. This is our podcast. So, all's well in your world?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, we were able to resurrect the old Murray lawnmower.
The what?
The Murray lawnmower, riding lawnmower. Bought it off of Marketplace.
What'd you call it? Murray?
Murray, that's the brand.
Okay.
It's like the quintessential mower brand.
I thought you named it Mary or something.
I could do that. Just remove a couple letters and it'd be the Mary mower.
Okay, so you resurrected. It's running.
Yeah, it runs really well.
What'd you have to replace?
The carburetor, had to rebuild the mower deck. Some of the hubs for the blades, belts, stuff like that.
But the engine's good? Just fired right up?
Yeah.
Purrs like a kitten?
Mm-hmm. A lot of power.
Man, I love mowing lawns.
Yeah, it was great. I just got out there and just went around. Then I was done. It's like, oh.
It's pure therapy.
So much better than push mowers.
Oh, yeah. Something about the vibration of the engine, just being out there by yourself, like your kids are trying to talk to you and you're just ignoring them because you can't hear them, they can't hear you, so
you're in the zone.
Why stop?
You're just zoning.
Gets you a chance to be with you, yourself. Just think.
And the loud noise kind of makes you internalize your thoughts. So it's just kind of like, it's an incubator for good thoughts.
I do it both ways. Sometimes I'll just ride the lawnmower. Sometimes I'll put AirPods in and listen to podcasts. And they've got that airplane mode or whatever, cancellation mode where it cancels everything out.
Nice.
It's pretty amazing. You can actually listen to podcasts on a lawnmower.
Right on.
So
if you had your aviation headset, you could do a podcast while you're mowing, and it would just cancel out the noises.
I think I'd have to put a bubble over my head because the microphone's going to pick up everything. I might be able to hear myself.
Doesn't the microphone still cancel everything out?
I don't think so. I guess we could try it. It might just be this long podcast of. Some people probably listen to it though.
Yeah,
because again, mowing lawns is therapeutic.
Well, they have those fake fireplace settings. It's like maybe somebody just wants to pretend that they're mowing the lawn for 2 hours.
That's true.
Just by listening, they're actually just sitting in their lazy boy.
ASMR.
Yeah, whatever that means.
I don't know. Something about sound and.
I can't take ASMR. I can't do it. Triggers me.
Triggers you?
Mm-hmm.
In a good way, though, right? Or
no,
bad way?
Like they have those advertisements where all the sounds are just super distilled, like they're cutting open a box, and it's 500 times louder than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Just grates my soul.
I kind of like it, actually.
Well, that's to each his own.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's all right. We don't have to agree.
No, we don't.
Just don't open any boxes around me in close proximity to my ears.
With loud microphones and amplification?
Well, that seems to be what they do is they just, it's like sound editing. they record each sound individually, and then they composite it back together.
Yeah.
And they amplify certain ones.
Seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, sure does.
Makes for a popular video, I guess.
Or you just have AI do it, I guess.
You can do a lot with AI.
Yeah.
Makes me worried for all the kind of white-collar technical jobs out there.
Why the technical ones?
Ones that use...
You said white collar.
Yeah.
So kind of office jobs.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Accountants, attorneys, anybody who deals in basically pure information.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you meant blue collar. I was mixed up.
No,
yeah, I think those are the types of jobs that are going to be succumb to AI.
I mean, I guess someday plumbers and electricians may succumb to AI, but I don't want a robot on my front porch trying to change my outlets or lights or fix my plumbing.
I don't know. I don't either. But
who knows? It might be there. We'll
yeah,
see.
maybe.
And then we're all going to be on a universal basic income because none of us can work for a living. And right?
Wow, this took a dark turn already. That's why I want to just be able to grow my own food.
Yeah.
Be a little bit more self-sufficient than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be good.
It's good.
You think robots will be the farmers? I mean, most tractors now are already GPS.
I was going to say, they're already halfway there.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch these YouTube videos with the farmers, and you got to know what you're doing still, but like those things will run themselves with incredible accuracy, timing. I mean, the way they water fields these days, they give it just the right amount of water and not a drop more.
Yeah.
I mean, in some cases, obviously, there's still a lot of flood irrigators who are using an excessive amount of water, and it's just because it's cheap and it's helps you grow. But some farms, and it's expensive. Sprinkling is expensive, but
I wonder if the first sort of phase of that will be just you'll have, instead of a farmer in the cab participating, they'll just be in some sort of command center.
Yeah.
And they'll be running like 10 tractors, just drone tractors, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably on the way.
We were watching Electric State last night. Have you seen that movie?
No, but I've heard of it.
It's where the robots revolt.
Mm-hmm.
Like the robots are serving the humans for so many years, and then they start thinking about their own rights. I mean, it seems like a goofy idea, but there's a lot of things that seemed like a goofy idea to me 10, 20 years ago, and now they're reality.
Yeah.
So are like robot rights a thing in the future?
I'm sure everything is going to be up for discussion. But it's all going to come back down to, like, if you're talking about human rights, well, what does it mean to be human? The Bicentennial Man was all about that, right?
I don't know who that is.
It was a Robin Williams movie.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
Isaac Asimov
Yeah.
wrote the story. You know, it's all about him becoming human,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was finally granted, like, personhood at the very end of everything.
I'll have to go watch that again.
Yeah. I was like,
What is
1999 or something?
It's like Star Trek and Data.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard not to think of Data, the android, as not a human, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's robotic. He's funny.
So
he has
like
a sense of
opens
humor.
up his arms and he's got all that circuitry. But that's just the natural way of things. That they want to sort of personify and anthropomorphize the robots. That's been the goal from the very beginning. So there's a...
Why is that the goal?
Why is that the goal?
To, humanize them.
Well, it's because I think human nature is such that when we create something, we want to create something in our own image. It's almost as if there's a prerogative that the creator must, or feels like he must, create something in his own image.
So the created bears an image that then wants to create.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look at art. When we make art, what do we do? Well, we paint landscapes and a lot of still life, but a lot of the great art is what? The Mona Lisa, Michelangelo's David. They're humans, right? We want to create things that are in our own image.
Interesting.
Even the myths and legends of Greek, Roman empires.
Yeah.
Those gods were basically humans that were just kind of the Ubermensch, right? The superhuman. So We always kind of want to recreate ourselves. And now we want to fully recreate ourselves in like body and mind.
I've never thought about that before.
Oh, did I stump you?
You did. I never thought of that.
Uh-oh. We better take a break while you think that over.
Yeah, I'm going to have to process that one.
And now a word from our sponsor. And we're back.
Who's our sponsor?
Lockheed Stellar Power.
Which is a made-up company.
It's a made-up company. And I think I'm going to change it. I mean, Lockheed obviously is not a made-up company. But
correct.
I had made that name like back in high school because I thought it sounded so cool.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I got to think of another thing for the L. Because I already have the acronym, so I need another L.
So it doesn't seem like you're conscripting an existing business name?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to do that.
No copyright issues?
I don't, yeah.
Even though it's not even a real business?
Right. And it's Lockheed Stellar Power, not Lockheed Martin. So
Good to know.
But if I find another L word that's just really good, I might put it in there. Someday we'll do a podcast on novel writing when I'm actually a novelist.
Yeah. You're in the process, aren't you?
Yeah, I have about 200 pages and a whole bunch of notes.
Yeah. How many pages is this book going to be?
I don't know. It keeps this. It's suffering from scope creep. It's growing. So it'll. The first manuscript, I imagine, will be about 800 pages.
Okay.
And then, of course, the editing process begins, and you take out stuff that's not necessarily. Start tweaking it, bring it down. I would like it to be like a 400-page novel when I'm done, but still have all the good stuff.
What's the bigger problem, scope creep or writer's block?
I think they are interrelated a little bit because when you start brimming with ideas and new possibilities and you start just the sort of fertile process of imagination, and then you kind of lose just the focus on one narrative strain, and then it becomes like you're trying to write 100 things and it's paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes you just got to sit down and just start writing, and then it takes you where it will. And it's just a magical process.
Yeah. I've never been a big journaler, but probably in the last couple of years.
As in your journals have always been tiny?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I interrupted.
You interrupted me. I've never been a journaler. Let's put it that way. Never, I guess, found the value in writing. But I do now. But physical journaling with a pen and paper, I'm a slow writer, and I'm not great at writing with a pen, and it's just slow. And sometimes, like, I have a great thought, and by the time I've written half of it down, I can't remember the rest of the thought. So I actually journal on my computer because I can type a heck of a lot faster.
You ever just dictate into one of those?
Yeah, I have done that
takers?
too. Like when I'm driving home or something, I have a phenomenal idea. I'll just start dictating into a Google Drive or something.
Nice.
And it's funny how different you talk than you write. But
just saw another fly. Should I not have acknowledged it?
We had a fly problem last time or the time before, but yeah. So, anyways, sometimes there's just value in just getting it out, thinking about it, expressing it on paper, and then sometimes you come back and you read it later, like that was an in the moment thing. Like it doesn't sound as good now.
It's like when you're having a dream. And
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that's such a good idea, and then you wake up and you're like,
reality sinks in.
that makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And wonder what I was thinking. Yeah.
Are you sure it's not a diary? Do you keep a diary?
I mean, aren't they the same thing? Diary, journal?
Maybe. Maybe our audience can weigh in on that. I just like writing Dear Diary. It's better than Dear Journal.
A diary is a chronological log of daily events and activities focused on what happened. A journal is an introspective space of exploring thoughts.
Okay. I can see that.
So they could be one and the same thing, but
Could
different
be.
at the same time.
We can merge them, and you could have a diurnal, which is a real word.
It is a real word. And
It just doesn't mean that.
diurnal means daily. Right?
Isn't diurnal like nocturnal? It's like an animal that is active in day and night? Diurnal.
Give me a second. Diurnal means active during the daytime or occurring every day. So it's the opposite of nocturnal. Diurnal.
Oh, okay. So it's not a combination of.
Or occurring every day. I think it has different meanings. But
Then what's active in day and night? Omnurnal. That's a good word. See if omnurnal is a word.
Human. Cathermal. They're scientifically referred to as cathermal. Animals and organisms that are active during both day and night.
Cathermal.
Cathermeral. Cathermal.
I did not know that. That's something new.
So there's diurnal, nocturnal, and cathermal. 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 I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's cathermal.
We're learning so much on this podcast.
Oh my gosh.
It's incredible.
We're supposed to learn beforehand and then come
Fountain of
splurge.
information.
But this is the whole point of this podcast, right?
I think the idea genesis is powerful too. Just like the dawning realization of verbiage.
Well, I think it's a good time to talk about why we're doing this podcast because, like, it led right into it.
You want to shoehorn that in here? Well, I guess it's not a shoehorn if it's a good segue, right?
It's a great segue.
Okay, so why did you want to do a podcast?
The whole idea, and you came up. We've been through so many renditions of names. It's not even funny. Like, I think I'll have a brilliant idea, and then it's gone. Like, you think about it, you're like, that's kind of a dumb idea, or it's too complicated. And so we kind of settled on free to think because too often you get in these silos, these social circles, and because of a cultural taboo or whatnot, you're unable to think kind of freely, or ask questions or think out loud, and you kind of possibly get yourself in trouble. And you and I have been doing kind of formats like this where we just go grab coffee and we just talk for hours. And it's so cathartic. It's so helpful just to think out loud. And then, like, if I say something dumb, you give me this weird look like, that's pretty dumb. Well, why is it dumb? And we just work through these ideas, and it's what humanity should be doing rather than just staking a claim on an idea and not thinking about it ever again. And so we arrived on free to think because that's literally what you and I are going to be doing. We're just going to be thinking freely, which means, and I want to warn people, which means we're going to say stupid things. We're going to say things that were half-baked. We're going to say things that, in hindsight, we believe are probably wrong. And we're just going to be vulnerable about that. We're going to come back and say, hey, last time I said this, I got some feedback. Boy, was I wrong. I thought it was this, and it wasn't. However, if we try to manicure everything and make sure everything is perfect, it's not going to be a human podcast. It's going to be a robotic podcast. And that's not what we want. We want to literally think out loud, think live, process with one another, and hopefully someone benefits from it. I think that's kind of the whole idea, and it's just free to think.
That's a pretty noble goal.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Is that your thoughts of this podcast?
Yeah, it's pretty much verbatim.
Verbatim.
Wow. Another word.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think there's this tendency just to, well, we've talked about it on previous episodes that may or may not air someday, but this tendency just to remain in your silos, your thought silos, and never venture out. And then someday you might think that you might find out those silos are completely, bereft of any sort of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a painful experience. So if you just venture out of those silos voluntarily a little bit, I think it's a very beneficial thing because then it's like, well, you find that you get recontextualized in true reality because you've seen all the alternative ideas and you've been able to reason through them.
Yeah, and that's why I believe the best response to poor ideas is not trying to suppress them, but rather just expose them to the light.
Yeah.
Expose them to reality, expose them to other people who can say, that's a bad idea, and here's why.
Yeah.
But when we try to suppress it, it's almost like you've got a bit of mold growing, and your response is, well, let's put it in the dark. Let's introduce maybe some moisture because the moisture can't escape, and then it just thrives.
Yeah, you put it in Tupperware and put it in the fridge.
Yeah.
And it just sits there and grows.
And it just thrives. The next time you bring it back, it has grown beyond
It's a jungle.
imagination.
Yep.
Whereas in reality, if you just take it outside and expose it to the sun,
Yeah.
it's be dead. Yeah, shrivels up. Now, if it's truth, it's going to grow. Like a plant.
Yeah.
So
So,
I think
maybe
that's the
we
idea.
should, we could also preface this by saying, as a backdrop, a very general backdrop, we believe in objective reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a reality.
Yeah.
And we are trying to uncover that reality through the process of just, some research, some extemporaneous thinking. But there is a reality that we're trying to kind of get to the bottom of.
So what you're saying is we don't believe everybody has their own truths and they operate only on those truths. We believe in a core objective reality that everybody operates on and by, and we're in search of that.
Yeah. So we're not postmodern.
Well, I should add, and unfortunately in this day and age, sometimes when you take a position or think a certain way, people attack the person, right? Rather than attacking the idea. And we've gotten away from that kind of Socratic method where we vehemently debate ideas rather than attacking people. And unfortunately, in today's political environment, we've gotten into these ad hominem attacks on people, on who they are, based on where they come from, based on how they choose to live or to worship or whatnot. We attack them personally rather than saying, I love you. I think you're, in my view, created in the image of God. You have infinite value in the eyes of God, but I disagree with you. I disagree with your ideas, the implementation of truth, and here's why. And we used to be able to debate that way, and at the end of the day, shake hands, love one another, and move along. But it seems like polarization has increased, and the chasm between humans is growing, between sides, between positions is growing. And again, this is just an effort to say, hey, let's recreate the market of ideas, and let's have it out.
And it's interesting also because you can have this situation where you have people that have, siloed ideas, like-minded ideas, and suddenly in this day and age, you can connect with somebody that's across the country or the world, and you can reinforce these ideas even though you're not in the same community. Mm-hmm. I think something that we've got away from is just sort of lower level community engagement where, the forum of ideas is literally a town hall in the town, and it's people on literally both sides of an aisle, and they're debating each other. But now I'm in my home on my computer, and I'm connecting with somebody that's over there across the country, and we're sort of bashing the ideas we disagree with, and we're reinforcing our own ideas. And we can do that in a totally atomized fashion where we don't even really know who we're talking to on the other end of the line.
Well, and you got to use that word loosely, connection, because when you're connecting online, it's very loose. It's a very tenuous, weak connection.
And it's easy to be,
mean.
Well, it's easy to be mean, and it's easy to hide too. I mean, just because someone has a gamer tag, you don't know if it's a man, woman. It's you don't really know who you're engaging with.
Yeah,
it's kind of spooky.
It is.
But
I've in my public life, when someone's really mad at me or frustrated with me, my go-to is just like, hey, let's go grab coffee. And most of them don't take me up on it because they're mad at me, and they realize that if they go to coffee, they're going to have to humanize me. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to reason a little bit. And that is scary. I'm not saying
not just a vampire or something.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but it is hard to reckon with the set of truths that you believe in. It's hard to consider something else that maybe your reality isn't quite true or isn't true at all. That idea is scary, but it's necessary. And that's why we're here.
Yeah. Well, one of our favorite concepts to keep bringing up is the man in the arena, right?
Yeah.
It's like, even though, it's unlikely that you and I are experts in really any field. I mean, we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, and we try to talk about a lot of different subjects. But what we're trying to do here is just show that two kind of average Joes, or an average Jacob and an average Cody, can still look at these things and reason through them. And not only that, put ourselves out there in sort of a, we hope, a prominent public fashion.
Yeah.
But do so in a reasonable manner and show everybody you can just talk about things. You don't have to have every single right answer when you stand up in front of a microphone. It's like, we're all in this together, and we're all trying to reason through probably the most complicated time in human history.
Yeah.
So,
and when you don't know something, it's okay to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we feel like we have to have an answer for everything.
Or just flat out be wrong. It's like if one week we say something and it's like, well, the next week we got a lot of flack and we actually did some research and you know what? Let's readdress that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you never see these days. It's always, if somebody is proved to be wrong, they will just do the gymnastics. They will bend over backwards to try to convince people of anything else than, no, I was wrong.
Well, and I mean, just as a moment of vulnerability myself, like I struggle just putting myself out there because I'm an elected official. I want everybody to know exactly what I think. I don't want there to be nuance. I want it to be pretty. So to just for me to put myself out there in such kind of a vulnerable way and just think out loud and have these conversations, it's transparent, but it's also exposing in a sense. And it doesn't feel incredible. But it's for me, this process is almost personal, and it's, almost irrelevant how many people we have listening to this podcast, but it's an opportunity for me to just be real, open, honest, and think out loud.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult.
And I hope that's something that never really goes away, because you see a lot of these podcast personas and they end up just kind of becoming a one-track character that only has one
audience
cadence.
Capture.
Yeah. And they can't be themselves. They can't be real, and they're just kind of a facade. So
I think
what we don't want to be is the facade podcast, facade cast.
Or start podcasting to a particular audience, because maybe one podcast gets a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that hit a note.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be super popular. And so then we just start beating that drum. That's not what we want.
Right.
We want to stay the same. I mean, that's the goal.
We like a variety.
Yeah, a variety.
Because, one of the strengths of each individual human is that they can think about a variety of things. And, you can specialize in a few things, but, man, we have just the huge amount of reasoning capability.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing is that we want to try to have this sort of, I don't know, it's kind of a contract with the audience of, reasonableness and trust, to say, you can trust us to be wrong and to admit it when we've been convinced otherwise. And then we trust the audience to take what we say and not just react to it, but say, okay, I'm going to sit down and think about that a little bit, and then maybe I can get into the discussion. Because another thing that's just rampant is just the reactionary, knee-jerk, I got to get at my keyboard and I got to type a comment and I got to do this. And there'll still be that. I mean, you can't get away from that, but at least you can probably tell when people are honestly seeking an answer versus when they just want to react and do the ad hominem attack.
Yeah, and we're going to be very receptive to honest feedback. Now, if it's just...
Well, maybe you will.
Now, if it's just, Cody, I don't like the red dot on your head, or Jacob, I don't like your red beard, or
that's too far.
You guys are dumb. I mean, whatever. I mean, we know that's going to come a little bit, but honest feedback, here's where I think you guys got it wrong.
Yeah.
Here's where I think you guys can improve.
Yeah.
We love honest feedback because it's how we all get better.
Sorry. You're going to have to delete that.
Nope.
At the end of the day is what I was trying to say, which rhymes. If we can't be honest with ourselves, I mean, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem, is that in so much discourse, in so much, in everything, we cannot be honest with ourselves.
Yep.
So that's why right here and between us and the audience, it's like we got to be able to be honest. Because if you can't be honest, there's no point in anything.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, and honest about where we come from, honest
Yeah.
about our worldviews, about our preconceived ideas, you know, so like we're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
You know, people know where I stand. We want to hear it from the other side. And the other thing I think we're committed to is, you know, it seems like a lot of podcasters and people out there that will straw man an idea. They'll make a weak representation of the idea that they want to attack, and then they'll just beat it to death. And it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was an actual proponent of that idea in the room, they would never make that straw man case. They would be making a much stronger case for their ideas. And so we want to, as best we can, steel man these cases and do our best to represent their side, you know, well, so that it's honest. Because that's the only way to have an honest debate is to understand, truly, genuinely understand where people are coming from and their ideas.
Mm-hmm. And that steel man is going to be closer to reality.
Correct.
No matter what issue you're talking about. But
it's harder to beat up a steel man.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So we're making our job even harder by steel manning it, but
yeah,
it's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Because it's easy to convince people with the straw man.
Yeah.
And the steel man, you end up tripping over and having to adjust your own views.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, it's June 19th, as I referenced earlier.
Oh, Juneteenth. Yeah.
Juneteenth. When was the first time you heard of Juneteenth?
It was only a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was because it entered the political discourse. I do not know the history of the holiday other than some very surface level anecdotes.
Well, it didn't become a federal holiday until 2021. And I think that's why most people had never heard of Juneteenth before that date, because it was a bit of an obscure event in history. I honestly don't remember when I first heard of it, but it became real in 2021 when it was a federal holiday. And my first reaction to it was because if you remember, we were going through this little thing called COVID.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And then right after COVID, we had the summer of the BLM riots. It was just a culturally sensitive, volatile time. And it was out of this kind of environment that Juneteenth was made a national holiday. So I think a lot of people were like a bit skeptical of the holiday. What is it? But when you read into it, it's actually a beautiful holiday. It's actually a beautiful thing. I mean,
well, tell us about it.
Well, on June 19th in, what was it, 1865, I believe it was? No, not 17. Yeah, 1865, June 19th. So Abraham Lincoln had, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation. He had declared freedom for slaves in the United States. But the word didn't get around to everybody. And that, I believe that was in 1865. No. I'm getting all my dates mixed up. Anyways, June 19th, 1865 was Juneteenth. So it was 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation until the final slave heard about their freedom. So it took a while for news to get around. There wasn't Twitter or X or Facebook or Instagram that where news travels quickly.
It could be months later.
Yeah, it's the Pony Express. And you got to imagine those in the South with slaves, and that's their economy. That's how they plow. That's how they do all their things, farm, you name it. So you got to imagine there's a reluctance in the South for slave owners to tell their slaves that they've been freed. So it wasn't like gossip. It didn't spread like wildfire. So it took nearly 2 years for this message to get all the way down to the South. And
if you're a plantation owner, you probably don't want your slaves talking to slaves on the neighboring plantation, right? You're going to kind of cloister them. And
yeah, correct. And so on June 19th, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger announced in Galveston that the enslaved people were free, and that's kind of considered the last of the slaves that were made aware of the Emancipation Proclamation.
When to bone up on my history. So when did the Civil War officially end at Appomattox?
Yes, and I'm forgetting what year that was.
I thought it was 1864. So the Civil War ends, and then a couple years later is when the last of the slaves find out that they've been freed.
Yeah, so American Civil War effectively ended in 1865 at Appomattox Courthouse, correct.
Okay.
So Juneteenth was also June 19th, 1865 was during 1865. So hold on. I guess the greater question, when was the Emancipation Proclamation?
I thought that was a few years earlier.
It had to be a few years earlier.
Like mid-Civil War.
September 22nd, 1862, preliminary emancipation announced. It was in 1863, so yeah, almost 2.5 years before Juneteenth that the final Emancipation Proclamation took effect. So 1863 to 1865. The war was over in 1865, and then June 19th, of course, Juneteenth.
Yeah. I guess if you think about it, it's one of these things where I think, well, quite obviously, the concept of freedom and liberty had been baked into the cake of the U.S. Constitution, even the Declaration of Independence. So really, Juneteenth is like the culmination of when the United States finally, and it's not been perfect since, but it's really a huge milestone in the United States becoming a nation of freedom and liberty for all men created equal.
Yeah, it was a...
So if you look at it in that sort of guise, that's an amazing event, right?
It is, and it's... If you look at the Constitution the way it was written, it's almost an expected outcome at some point.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard is like nobody really expected or wanted slavery to continue, but it was so baked into the economic system that it just took decades and decades and decades and a civil war to finally eradicate it because it was so entrenched.
Yeah. And, you know, the evil of racism and that spirit that exists in that day, it took a long time to get rid of it. And it's not gone today. There are still there's still evil in this world, believe it or not.
Oh.
There's still people with a sinful nature. And that's probably never going to be gone. But
yeah, maybe someday.
Maybe you're right. I agreed. But yeah, that was the first step. Wasn't the first step. It was a step among many, but it was a memorable step in history where America was gradually rising to its potential.
Yeah.
And its core values and core principles.
Yeah. And just imagine being those slaves in Galveston, you said?
Yeah.
That finally here, it's like one day you wake up and you're a slave. The next day you wake up and you've been freed, right? It's almost like the Exodus from, just through much pain and travail, an entire segment of society has been freed. Now, the Hebrews were freed to make their own nation, but the slaves were freed to become part of this United States of America in full citizen form.
It's interesting you mentioned the Exodus out of Egypt because they were in the wilderness for 40 years, and they groaned, they grumbled, they ate manna all the time. I think that's all they ate,
except for the quail. Occasionally,
yeah,
manna with occasional quail. That's the forecast.
But it's not ironic, but it's very similar in that freedom doesn't mean everything's going to be hunky dory, and in fact, sometimes freedom's a lot harder than not having freedom. As the Israelites experienced coming out of Egypt, like it was hard, and they had to work and they had to build. And same thing in America. It was not easy. It was not simple. And it took many years. The Civil Rights Act didn't happen until the 60s, so nearly 100 years later. Did the Civil Rights Act happen. And so it was a slog. And a lot of people had to work hard. It was not hunky-dory day one. And through that whole Reconstruction, people started thinking, okay, how are blacks going to enter into society? How are they going to start buying land? How are they going to start operating within the law? And it was difficult because, whites who were slave owners pushed back hard.
Yeah, there was kind of a soft slavery that happened in Reconstruction of how do we still keep these people subjugated even though I don't have legal ownership?
Within the law, how do I continue to keep them subjugated? And they did it through loans and calling loans due. And, so it was almost like forcing them back into a modicum of slavery.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it was a beautiful thing that led to a lot of work. And we've only progressed today, and we'll continue to progress, and we'll continue to call ourselves higher to that standard that we know we can abide by. So Juneteenth.
So do you think it was just the timing of it becoming a federal holiday is why it became
Oh yeah,
reviled by a lot of people?
I think more on the conservative side, it was this skepticism of why is this holiday coming in right now in the midst of massive riots? What's going on? And I think with good question, why is this coming in now? But you look into it and there's nothing wrong with celebrating this holiday. It's a good holiday to celebrate.
Oh yeah. I mean, for African Americans or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, someone who is a slave and becomes freed, that's an incredible thing.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, you have just being part of this American experiment where there's this huge leap in the right direction of all the principles that we put into the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are coming to fruition, right?
Yeah.
So the United States of America in 1864, 1865 seemed to be closer to that ideal United States of America than even when it was founded.
Oh yeah.
You could say that, make that argument.
100%. And hopefully we're closer today. I know we're closer today, but hopefully we're closer tomorrow, figuratively speaking, than we are today.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it can go, if you look at it from a sort of pendulum perspective, I think the pendulum can go a little too far. And that's not to say that you can have too much freedom or too much of any sort of liberty. Well, I think you can. We can get in more in that because there's a difference between liberty and license, right?
Anarchy.
But yeah, I think once you pass a certain point, and I'm speaking from personal experience of just the way that I grew up in the 90s. The way I grew up in the 90s, it was very much the Martin Luther King I have a dream speech, right? Just kind of echoing in the culture.
Yeah.
And I think we've gone beyond that to say initially the civil rights was about equality, but nowadays, and you can look around and see this, it seems to be about retribution, and that's probably a whole nother discussion of why, but it seems like we were on a good path in the 90s, early 2000s, and then something has changed, and now the path we're on is a path of the sort of cultural Marxism to say, no, there's this eternal concept of oppressor and oppressed, and now we're just deciding who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed, and there's never any hope for true reconciliation. But it seems like 30 years ago, 25 years ago, there was still hope, and we were still on this path of reconciliation, but now we're not.
Yeah,
Your thoughts?
No, I agree. As though we pass this pendulum of, okay, now you're free to think, you're free to act, you're free to do things, to now we're swinging to this point where you must think. You're evil if you're not thinking this way. And we've gotten away from that constitutional protection, also that cultural protection of people thinking freely, acting freely within the bounds of a constitutional republic. And it's probably a kind of a great segue. Kind of our main topic today, and that's just Pride Month.
Well, let me see one more thing on that. And it just kind of occurred to me is it seems like it's this, as much as I come back and keep harping on it, it's kind of the elephant in the room, is the postmodern way of thinking about stuff is even with modernism, it seems like not only is there societal progression, but there's still societal responsibility, right? It's like in modernism, society is progressing because every member of society is doing something to aid in that progression. But then if you transfer into postmodernism, which says that, postmodernism defined as a distrust of any meta-narrative, suddenly it's, I'm sort of the king of my own world, and I need all of the liberty, all of the freedom, and none of the responsibility. And I think that might be the sort of nexus of what we're seeing these days is just people want the freedom and the license to do whatever they want, but they don't realize that there are responsibilities that correspond to that objective reality that are in place. And so what happens is if you bring up the responsibilities, that's an attack on their liberty. When it's not the case, liberty should be a fusion of rights and responsibilities that make a good society. But we have people that just want the liberties without the responsibilities, and they believe that they're entitled to it.
Correct.
And I think that flows out of that postmodern way of thinking.
So someone somewhere is going to bear responsibility for someone's actions at some point. And I agree. I mean, if you think it in kind of a microcosm of like the rampant obesity we see in the United States, we want all the pleasure of eating whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want health insurance that just takes care of all the issues on the tail end. And we want it free.
And the Ozempic and the liposuction. And
yeah. And we want everything without any of the consequences. And to some point, those consequences are building up. You can see it in the deficit in our healthcare system in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
People can't get it because it's trying to pay for the true reality of people living freely without responsibility. So it's not as though those responsibilities just go somewhere; they accumulate, and we're seeing them in different ways. And
yeah, well, I mean, it's the same like financially, right? If you just live your life on credit and you're buying whatever you feel like buying in the moment, you're just stealing from your future, right?
Or
It's
someone's
like
future.
The reality comes to roost no matter what you do. Now, it could roost on another person or it could roost in your own future, but you can get away from, I think it was Ayn Rand that said, right, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the effects of ignoring reality.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
So is there any other celebration that's happening in this time that could be related to these concepts?
Every year.
Every year?
Pride Month.
Every June 1st?
We decided what's the least controversial issue we could start our podcast with, and you suggested Pride Month.
Yeah. Because it's all decided and we're just kind of going to give an overview.
Right. Well,
what is Pride Month? Well, first of all, what is pride?
historically, pride has been defined as something that's not one of the values most people would live their life by. Now, you can be proud of your kids. You can be proud of your country. You can be proud of progress to a certain degree. But pride in general has always been seen as a vice, historically, biblically. So it's interesting that Pride Month or the movement, the LGBTQ movement, would kind of glom onto the idea of pride, which has historically been seen and still is as a vice. We see a proud, haughty person as someone who eventually fall because,
Like Nebuchadnezzar?
yeah, because they have blind spots when you're proud. So I think you can look at this in different lenses, right? If you look at it in a constitutional lens, constitutionally, is there anything wrong with Pride Month? No. I mean, it allows people of a free nation to think and operate and to celebrate, live as they choose, and for that we celebrate. Because if I'm not defending your rights, then you're not defending my rights, and if we're not defending each other's rights to live, to believe, to worship as we choose, then at some point this whole grand experiment is going to end, and it's going to end badly. And then, of course, you can look at this from the lens of the Bible and Christianity, and even then, it's there's a lot of debate around it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, specifically around homosexuality, heterosexuality, and all that stuff. But Pride Month in itself is to clearly to celebrate those things. And the point that I make before we start any of this is, again, we battle in ideas and not against people. And we have to continue to remember that these are people. These are real people. And we love and accept people. right where they're at, but that doesn't mean we need to agree with their ideas. And I think that's what's so toxic about Pride Month. And again, we talked about that pendulum. What's so toxic about Pride Month is that the system believes that you must believe or you will be punished. You have to believe what I believe. And that's not tolerance. Tolerance is this idea that we've kind of discussed today, that we vociferously discuss ideas. And we, at the end of the day, we may disagree. We will disagree. You and I will disagree on certain things. But at the end of the day, we're still brothers. We're still sisters in Christ. Brothers and sisters in Christ. Or we're still humans on this planet. Whatever way you want to look at it, we still have to live on this planet together. And we need to agree to disagree. That in and of itself is tolerance. However, tolerance has kind of been redefined today as you must agree with my truth. And anything short of that makes you personally, again, here's this ad hominem attack, you personally a bigot, a racist, you name it. And that's that pendulum swinging way too far. So whereas as I support the idea of the freedom to assemble, the freedom to think, the freedom to love whoever you want to love, and I will defend that to the end of time, the toxic point of Pride Month is that it actually lacks tolerance. It's you must believe exactly the way I believe, or again, you can't be a part of our culture. And what say you?
I don't know. Got a lot of thoughts. Maybe I can tell a story.
Tell me a story.
So years ago, we went to Las Vegas, part of a mission trip actually, and we stayed at the Circus.
Mm-hmm. I've been there.
Yeah, it's a fun place. So we were there during the week, and it surprised me, and I guess this is pretty regular, of just how empty all the resorts are on the Strip during the week, and then on the weekend they fill up and they're bustling.
Yeah.
So we were there during the week, so Circus was like very empty, and it was almost a liminal space in some regards. But one of the vendors that they had was this spa where you go in and you put your feet in this tank, and the little fish, they nibble at your feet. Right?
Oh yeah, I've done that.
You've done that?
Yeah.
So we went into this place, and the attendant was there, and there was nobody else there because again it was empty, and you sit on these big kind of thrones, and then you put your feet in there. But during this process, it became very apparent that the attendant was transgender, and you start thinking about that, and it's like, well, how do we react? And because that's one of the things about these hot button cultural issues is, as soon as you're confronted with this issue, then you have to think internally of like, how am I gonna behave, right? You have to like make decisions on your behavior, right? But it just got me thinking that this person, again, you humanize people because it turns out everybody's human. And what I saw in this person wasn't, some monster or something. It's just a person that's just trying to do their job, trying to live their life. And so in that moment, seeing this person, my only response was, I'm just going to do everything I can to make this experience fun for my family and pleasant and enjoyable for I can't remember their name, but there's no reason for me to react in this moment.
Yeah.
In a way that, because one of two things, I could sit there and just have the experience, or I could throw a fit and say, no, we're never coming back to this place. We're leaving right now. Come on, everybody get your stuff and we're getting out of here, But in the end, it was very enjoyable, and I'll probably never see that person again. But, in that moment, I think I learned a tiny little lesson in that there's, you can kind of separate, and it's hard to do, but you can separate the person from the ideology that's captured them, right? And we can debate ad nauseum to the genesis of homosexuality or transgenderism or whatever, where does it come from? But in the end, as Christians, we have to show love to these people in the moment where they are in the best way possible. And so, in that moment, we decided just to enjoy the experience, and having the fish nibble on your feet was a lot of fun.
Glenn.
But so that's the story. But then on the other hand, we have to discuss it. Do you know what a Mott and Bailey argument is?
Mm-mm.
So a Mott and Bailey argument is in the medieval times, they would have the Mott and the Bailey, and the Mott is kind of the village that's surrounded by kind of the wooden wall, the village wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's semi-permeable,
Okay.
big gate and everything. And then you have the Bailey, which is the castle, which has the stone wall.
Okay.
And it has the iron gate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in Mott and Bailey arguments, you will have people arguing with something that's a very extreme view of something.
Yeah.
And then when that's challenged, they will retreat to the Bailey, and then they will hide inside the Bailey argument. Like, for instance, on the abortion issue, someone will argue for abortion up to and including birth.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gets challenged. So then they go back to, well, what about rape and incest? What about the life of the mother? Yeah. We have to protect these,
Sure.
Okay. And so the Bailey is this more defensible argument, but then they will venture out of the Bailey into the Mott argument and say, because I have sort of fortified this
mm-hmm.
part of the argument, then I have freedom to kind of explore more extreme versions of the argument. But the Mott and Bailey, as I see it with the LGBT, issue, is that's what happens is we see all of these things, all of these effects of the movement, the LGBTQ, whatever movement. And we say, no, we don't like the drag shows for kids. We don't like the pride parades where you have half-naked men gyrating sexually in public, right? Mm-hmm. We have all these things. It's like, as part of the movement and the fruit of the movement, we don't like these things. And then they will retreat to the Bailey and say, these are just people that are just trying to live their lives. And there is a big separation mm-hmm. between the people that have been captured or a part of the community and the movement as a whole. And when I think about it, I try to be careful to say I am very much in opposition to the movement mm-hmm. as a movement, as a big abstract, obtuse thing mm-hmm. that has kind of more sinister fruits, rather than seeing if I encounter someone who is obviously a part of the community, the LGBT community, I'm going to treat them with respect. I'm going to treat them with the dignity that I think that they are, deserve. And I'm not going to sit there and belittle them and be mean to them as a person, because, and I can just be perfectly honest here, I see the sort of collective, the movement, I see it as a cultural poison. And, I think it's truly a cultural poison, and it has poisoned the individuals, and they will defend all day long, like I was born this way or whatever, and we can debate all those things. But in the end, the movement has metastasized into something that is completely, mm-hmm. It's out of control.
Yeah.
And it's seen some checks in the last few years, but, the movement itself is just out of control, and it's a poison for the individual. It's a poison on society. It's a poison in the church. Mm-hmm. And I know that those sound extreme because in your mind, you're thinking of the individual.
Sure.
And you're thinking, you call this a poison? So you must think that this person is a poison and they are evil person.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I think that this is a poison and they have been, injected with this poison, and it's now made them sort of toxic. So, and I think that's the right way of looking at it as a Christian, and that's probably what we'll get into is the Christian response. But if you look at it as what it is, it's the disease of sin exhibiting itself on individuals that are made in the image of God, and that we're all affected by that, right? Mm-hmm. As Christians, we believe in total depravity, which means total for each individual and a total of the population. We are all affected by the fall. But here we have this particular brand of sin that seems like it's so pronounced and it's such an anathema, and it seems like it's flamboyant. It's just out there. It is, it's just this huge. Maybe I should go back a little bit. When I'm talking about, I don't know, I see the ism, the LGBTQ ism, as the fully metastasized version of the destruction of the nuclear family.
Mm-hmm.
And having said that, we see this LGBTQ-ism as this horrible thing in and of itself. But I think it's really the culmination of a ton of these slippery slope steps that have been really throughout the late 19th century, 20th century, 21st century, of taking this structure called the nuclear family and systematically dismantling it. Because if we take a look at that thing, that unit, that nuclear family, what is it in the idealized biblical form?
Mm-hmm.
It's a man married to a woman, one and one, and they have children, which they raise, and that's the family, and that's the repeating structure, and that's the little atom of society. And you put a ton of those atoms together, and you get a cohesive, homogeneous society. Well, what have we seen in the late 1800s, 1900s, 21st century is we see, a couple different things. We see feminism, which I think started with good intentions, and then the pendulum swung, and then it's retributive and it's postmodern and all these things. And then we see contraception, which means now you can have sex and you don't have to worry about the consequence of having those dastardly children, right? Then we have no-fault divorce, which says, well, divorce is just kind of a reality now, and anyone can get into marriage and anyone can get out of marriage for any reason. So suddenly you can say, the bond between husband and wife, it doesn't really matter that much. It's not a covenant. It's just a contract. And if both parties want out, we're out of there, So, and then what's next? Well, we obviously have abortion and we have all these things. And then suddenly kind of, and it's always been there in some way, shape, or form, but it really came to the forefront, starting in the 70s, the sort of homosexuality, right? Of suddenly it's, we have this thing called the nuclear family that has been kind of dismantled on every front through various steps. And then suddenly, the gay guys, they want to get married now. And it's like, who can blame them? We've taken something that is a very, very holy, foundational institution that was mandated by God himself, and we have made a parody of it to where it's a shadow of its former self.
Sure.
So then the gay people want to get married. It's like, okay, well, first of all, as a society, we don't really have any moral value to stop them because we've taken all the sort of higher moral standard of the family and just disregarded it. Mm-hmm. And then second of all, they want to enter into something where they have the benefit of being married, and who would blame them for that? Mm-hmm. So, it's easy to see the transition, but it's also, we got to look at the whole picture, and we say that, well, this flamboyant, and I use that term on purpose, right? Because it literally is. It's out there. It's brightly colored. It's all these things that I would consider flamboyant, and it's such an anathema because we can see it. But all the while, through the 20th century, these undercurrents of eroding the family have been happening, and this is where I can point the finger at the church and say, I truly believe that the church is the antidote. But the church itself is not dispensing the antidote to society, but especially not dispensing the antidote to itself. And that antidote being a holy reverence for the nuclear family. of one man, one woman, raising children in liberty and responsibility as prescribed by, the Bible. And so, I mean, that's just a whole bunch of kind of spitballing there. But you see what I mean is like there's these sins that are kind of in the background, right? The contraception is in the bedroom. The divorce happens in the court, and we don't really want to talk about it, and all the things that the alcoholism or pornography use or any of these, all these sins that beset the sort of Christian family happen in the background. And then all of a sudden LGBT pops up as a direct result of all that, the fatherlessness, the sort of feminization of society and all these things. LGBT is this big old kind of like boil on the face of society. And we have to deal with that. It was like, oh my goodness, this is such an issue. Well, we do not have the authority to deal with that until we deal with our own sin, right? There's 100%. The Bible verse that says, deal with the plank in your own eye before you start talking about the speck in your brother's eye. And that's a little out of context, but I think the concept still works of if we want to apply what we consider our moral authority on this issue, we need to have a revival in the church 100%. Of this morality, right? Of people saying, I'm going to stay pure before marriage, and then I'm going to get married in a pure state, and then I'm going to maintain that holy matrimony until I die. Yeah. And that should be the goal for I'd say certainly every Christian, but every person in society, because that is the thing that maintains the continuity of society. When you start breaking down that family unit, that's when all these societal problems show up, right?
Yeah. And I think you nailed it when you said we don't have the moral authority in culture today. I think we used to, but we don't anymore. And when I say we, I mean the church. Yeah. We don't have that moral authority because we're not dealing with the sin of the church. Like we're not holding ourselves to our own moral standard, and we just want to pick on this one issue. Yeah. And it's an easy issue to pick on because it is right up in your face.
It's out there, right? And it has a whole month.
And again, this movement started out as, people saying, gay, lesbian, I want to marry the person I want to marry. That's what it started out as. And again, you get these pendulums where they go from that, which I understand the desire, I understand the intention, all that stuff. And it swings from good people wanting to marry someone of the same sex, swinging this pendulum, going past the point of reasonableness, all the way to the point of now you have good people being forced to celebrate in these pride parades where you've got, men gyrating half naked in front of kids. And we're saying that's a good thing. Yeah. Because we don't know where to stop the pendulum. And we can't bifurcate maybe things we agree with and things we don't agree with in a movement, constitutionally, morally, you name it. And we're not able to bring it back to this. Now, there's a new poll out. They do it every year, but the support for the LGBTQ movement peaked probably 10 or 15 years ago, and it's been steadily declining because the pendulum swung way too far to the point where we're being forced to accept very extreme ideas, actions, you name it, and we can't bring it back to a reasonable middle, a constitutional middle where we can agree to disagree, but we have respect for each other, and we don't force people to believe one way or another. But yeah, the cultural moral argument it's scary. Like, where are we going to be at in 50 to 100 years? Because what has held culture together for so long is that nuclear family. It works. It's worked for thousands of years, and it's brought us to where we are. And we now have this because we are a wealthy nation, because we are a wealthy globe, relatively speaking. If you look back in history, we have this wealth, and now we have this kind of freedom to do whatever we want, but don't think that there's not consequences, or consequences aren't going to be had at some point.
Yeah. And I think the wealth and the affluence is one of those things that, because there's that system of wealth and affluence and everything is pretty readily available, you can push the consequences into the future. And that's, look around you. That's what we've done all along, right? The national debt, what is it these days? 30-something trillion.
Oh, yeah.
that's just pushing the consequences into the future.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, the church in general terms, right? Allowing and not dealing with the sin inside the church is just pushing a worse consequence into the future, right?
Yeah.
It's like the weeds are small. It's easy to deal with the small weeds, but those weeds become giant trees, and then to actually uproot those things is very damaging.
100%.
And I think we've gotten into the place in the church where we have the trees, they are rooted, and now we don't even want to deal with them. They're the trees in the room, right? We don't want to acknowledge they're there. And I would, you know, as much as I oppose the LGBTQ-ism, you know, what I see is individuals like I just discussed. They are individuals. They are lost. They are yearning, and they've seemed to found their community. But until the church deals with its own sin, it's not going to be able to separate the sin from the sinner and say, no, we welcome the sin, or we welcome the sinner, sorry, and we want to sanctify the sinner into a state where they no longer sin. Because we have lost that moral authority, that's where I think the LGBTQ-ism gets into the church, and now we have thousands and thousands and thousands of multi-denominational LGBTQ-ism affirming churches, which is just, you know, like I said, if I consider that the poison, then the poison is in the bloodstream of the church. And until we deal with all the other sins, it's like if you have a headache and you keep taking Tylenol because this headache is so bad, but you have the headache because you have a tumor, maybe you should get the tumor out of your head, heal up, and then the headache will go away on its own.
Yeah.
So if we can get to all these sort of hidden poisons inside the church, then we will have not only the authority, but the clarity to say, okay, now we can deal with this other issue in a concise way, in a surgical way, and we can love people and rescue them from the sin that besets them.
Yeah. It's a tough issue. And it's, like you said, it's one it's gotten more and more into the church these days. And not just in certain persuasions of Christianity, but in every church. And we've got to talk about it. It's, there are those who are trying to say that the Bible, you know, is very clear about this and supports homosexuality, which is, again, from a secular standpoint, you can't argue. I mean, you could argue from a kind of a natural theology standpoint, but for the most part, it's like, you know, do what you want to do. We live in the United States of America. I support you as a human and your ability to do these things. But for me, it's a bit offensive to make the biblical argument that this stuff is all by design. To believe in God and also believe that this is by design is you know, too far for me. It's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, you have to delete and manipulate a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You have to come up with things like the Queen James Bible, which is, you know, you're just taking all the passages that obviously counteract your argument and deleting them and manipulating them, all under the guise of, well, it was mistranslated, which is also a fallacy. But yeah, I mean, I think there's bigger, worse problems in the undercurrent of the church.
Oh yeah.
That if we just had the courage to deal with them. And I think also another problem is, and of course, you know, sort of armchair quarterbacking here, but the way that we convert people into the church is we say, come to Jesus, everything will be better, he'll solve all your problems, you know, which in some way, shape, or form is absolutely true. But again, going back to that, we preach the liberty of faith in Jesus Christ without the responsibility of sanctification.
Man. And that's our fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the sanctification is so hard. So we try to get people in the door in whatever way, shape, or form they're in. And then we fail to say,
100%.
okay, Jesus wants you to come as you are, but not stay as you are. And that, like, don't stay as you are, become sanctified. That goes against every iota of human nature.
Oh, man.
Because that's where you say, you know, you got to give up on that stuff that you like, but you know is destructive. And that process of letting go of all your carnal, worldly lusts in order to become more like your Savior, nobody wants to hear that, right? So then it becomes, well, you accept Jesus into your heart and you remain exactly the same for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the majority of the converts. And so it's easy to see where the LGBT portion would say, why won't you welcome us into your church? Because you welcome all these other people that sit there in the pews and they're exactly the same as before conversion.
Yeah. They're sinners in the pews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, why won't you welcome us in? We just want to come in the door and just sit there. Why won't you let us do that?
Yeah.
And then, but we don't have the moral authority to say, no, once you're in, you have to leave behind that old way of thinking, that old lifestyle, and become sanctified. And that is not just true of the LGBT issue. That's true of the alcoholics, of the drug addicts, of the porn addicts. All these people, once they find faith in Christ, because what did Christ say when the woman caught in adultery, right? It's like, woman, where are your accusers?
Yeah.
And she said, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
In that moment, she had been delivered from her previous. And then what did he say to her?
Go and sin no more.
Go and sin no more, which that is the sanctification process of it. Yeah. It's good that you've got in the door, but now you actually have to work to change your life to reflect the Savior.
Well, and I can't blame the community, LGBTQ community, for their criticisms of the church. Because for the most part, they're probably spot on. Mm-hmm. They say, you guys want to call out our sin and make us seem evil in a sense. But look at all the people in your pews, evil at their core, at our core, that you won't do anything about their sin. You won't call them to the carpet on certain issues that are clearly sin. And to a degree, they're right.
Yeah.
There are good churches out there who call their own constituents to the carpet, if you will, and to a higher standard. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Bible calls us to a higher standard. The thing we have to recognize also is that we're sinners, and that we will always get it wrong, and the church is made up of sinners. But in that church, in that context, we need to continue to call our own to a higher standard and expect a higher standard. However, when we let that stuff just settle in the church, what reason does the outside have to come in? They see no change.
Absolutely
they see no
not,
difference. Right? So then why not come in and just make your own church, your own religion, syncretism like we saw in the 1st and 2nd century, people just adding different things. It's easy. It's simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but then in the overall scheme of things, it loses any salt, right?
Yeah.
It cannot flavor things.
Yeah.
So. It's one of those things where Pride Month, the month itself, the ism, the movement, is a very nasty thing. And I've said it's a poison, and I'll stand by that.
Yeah. But at the same time, they're human beings that we need to love and care for, and we have to separate the two. Just like we're trying to do in this podcast, we're separating the person from the idea.
Yeah.
The problem, and I know we're going long, but the problem is... It usually happens. The problem is that postmodern movements kind of tie the person to the idea, to the activity, and they're inseparable. So if you don't like the idea, if you don't like their position, you're essentially attacking that person. And that is not the case. And we have to separate the two.
Yeah.
It's the only way that constitutionalism works, is if you separate the activity from the person.
Yeah.
Because if they're exact same thing, they're guilty as charged. You can't ever separate them, but they have to be for this whole system of government, for this whole experiment to work. And in the eyes of God, He separates us from our activity. He separates us from our sin. Every day He separates from that sin.
Because He has that surgical precision and that infinite discernment. And it's interesting you say postmodernism in the culture, but I think postmodernism in the church is 100%. Just as rampant, right? Mm-hmm. Because here you have this sort of way of thinking where, on the one hand, I have submitted myself to the meta narrative, but then as I sit in the pew and go about my business, I'm a postmodern person, thinking that my truth can be whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that truth is just, I've accepted Jesus, but now I've made it. I don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
And again, that postmodernism is a poison too. And so, the church, and it's it's metaphorically and maybe more than metaphorically mentioned in the Bible that the church is a body, right? And Christ is the head of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the body of the church here in America has a sickness,
Mm-hmm.
and it needs to deal with its own sickness before it can go out in the culture and do something else, you know. And I can speak from experience of, you know, when I had cancer, it was like I felt the weakest in my entire life. I was so weak. But then if I, in that weakened state, went out and tried to help somebody or do something that required strenuous activity, it was very damaging to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have the ability to do that. It was only until I fully recovered, I fully healed, that I was able to do things again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I see the church as it's sitting there in the chemo chair, or maybe it's not even in the chemo chair. It's sitting there at home with this debilitating disease, and it's still trying to lever the fulcrums of culture when it just doesn't have the strength.
Yeah,
Even though it has the responsibility, it doesn't have the strength or authority to do it until it gets healed up on its own. Unfortunately, though, I think the only thing that's going to bring that about is you take away the affluence, you take away the riches, you take away the good, you take away the ease, the comfort, and everything. Only when you're left with that stark reality and that dependence on God, that's when your theology starts to get pretty critical and pretty well-defined.
And real.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know,
So, well, hey, man, first podcast,
I don't know.
kind of in the books.
So I guess the end question is, do you hate gay people?
Absolutely not.
And I think that's the correct answer.
The correct answer is no, we love them.
Yeah.
Just like I love the sinner sitting across the table from me.
But if you had a doctor that had a patient that had a disease and that doctor withheld the cure, is that doctor acting in the right manner?
Or if that doctor hated that person for having an ailment.
How dare you have cancer?
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they just have cancer. Let's work on the cure.
That's right.
Sometimes the cure is not pleasant.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We started out with a doozy. I'm sure future ones will be a bit lighter, but we do. We want to know where you disagree. We want to know where you agree. Again, we're free to think. I'm Cody.
I'm Jacob.
Yeah, and as we always say.